Okay. Good morning once again. My name is Dave Nadler with the National Weather Service here in Peachtree City, Georgia. This is our second of 3 sessions or webinars that we're doing to sort of for our Integrated Warning Team Partners workshop that we typically do in person, but given the circumstances this year, we are doing this virtually. So second of 3 sessions, the first one was on the winter weather outlook. This session will talk more about useful weather tools and resources that we hope will be beneficial to all of you, all of our core partners that are in this with us together. Some of this may be a reminder, but there are some new things and updates to some of the existing sites and information that we passed along to you in the past. So we hope everybody can get through this and enjoy part of it as we go through. Okay. Here are the contents. We're going to start off by talking a little bit about some of the winter weather guidance, not the outlook or anything like that, but some of the products that are out there that we can look at and that are internal, especially when we're talking about probabilities of snow accumulations and ice accumulations. These graphics are out there on the web from our web page, but they're not necessarily something we share with like the general public per se, but it is out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of those things. The watch warning advisory matrix, if you will, that comes from our office or from the National Weather Service when we issue these products. And then we'll get into a variety of different situational awareness tools, ranging from hydrologic tools for heavy rainfall flooding events, all the way to like point and click forecast and hourly weather graphs, planning tools, and everything in between. So we'll go ahead and get started off with the winter, the snow and ice probabilistic activity or graphics. This is from our webpage that you see there at the top. Again, it should be attached to the helpful links PDF that's attached you see under the handouts. But we've been doing this for several years, and the surrounding offices outside of Peachtree City are starting to do it too. I know Greenville, Spartanburg is doing it. What we do with this is it basically creates sort of like goalpost around snowfall or ice accumulation based on the official forecast that we put out. So if we don't have any snow accumulation in our forecast grids, then the output on this page will basically be nil, will be nothing. So, but typically leading up to snow or ice events, we obviously will have some sort of snow and or ice accumulation in our forecast package. So what this is showing you basically is taking, and you hear us talk about ensemble of models, which is like a collection of models with different variables inputted into the actual model solutions. You'll kind of get a high end and a low end graphic that's centered that on either side of our actual official forecast. It's not, what you see is it's not a worst case scenario when you see the higher end graphic, but what it's saying is it's basically a 1 in 10 chance that those amounts could be reached, okay, or exceeded. So again, based on a collection of model information and graphics, you'll get kind of a high-end probability and a low-end probability. And basically the way we sort of message it and communicate it is, we basically say expect at least this much and potentially up to the high-end amount. And again, these goalposts sort of narrow as we get closer to the event, but we do we kind of use it as guidance. And we want to make sure that that's emphasized, that when we put this information out, it's not to say that if we're forecasting 1 to 3 inches and the high end amount is putting out 6 to 8 inches, we know that there's a small chance that things could evolve that could increase the amounts over a particular amount of time, but that's not the official forecast. So we may have some questions on this and we can go back to it, but I just wanted to, it's been out there for a few years. We haven't had a real large number of events to utilize it very much, but if and when we do have an event, like let's say this winter, and we do utilize these graphics in like our emails and briefings, we'll do our best to explain, as I'm doing now, sort of like the limitations of it and what it really is there for you all, especially for planning purposes. When we're looking at the potential to see higher end amounts versus what's in our official forecast. Sid, we doing okay on the questions? Okay, good. What this snow and ice probabilistic page will also show is, in addition to the amounts that I just showed, a couple of examples on that previous slide, it will show the probabilities or the chances, percentages of reaching a particular area, seeing like at least a half an inch of snow or 1 inch of snow, 2 inches of snow, 4 inches of snow, etc. So you can graphically see that, page through it and see that. In addition, there's also a pull down menu for a county, for each county in the state of Georgia, to see, when you're on our page at least, to see by town or city what the probabilities are for a particular location, to see a 1/10 of an inch of snow, a half an inch of snow, 1 inch, 2 inches, 4 inches, etc. So in addition to the amounts in the previous slide, where those goalposts might be on the low end and high end potential, you also get kind of, is there an 80% chance of seeing at least a half an inch of snow at your location? And you can break that down graphically or through the county pull down menu. Here's a good question we've got. It's asking if probabilistic is for a 24-hour period or longer. Great question. The question was whether or not if this is a probability for a 24-hour period, and it's basically looking at, yeah, it is a 1 day, 24-hour outlook. So you'll have like day 1, day 2, day 3 in these probabilities. So it is a 24-hour window that it's focusing on for, and again, assuming that we have actual snow or ice accumulations in our forecast grids, you will get the output on these pages with respect to the probabilities to exceed a certain amount, and also the snowfall amount graphics on the previous slide. Good question. Okay, we'll go ahead and let's move on. And we can always, at the end of it, we can always go back and look at some things in more detail if you'd like to see it. But the next resource we'd like to show you, again, related to winter weather guidance, is this Winter Storm Severity Index. This has been around for a few years. Initially, it was developed by the Burlington office up in the Northeast, and it's sort of expanded across the entire country and evolved over time. I put that little disclaimer at the bottom or note about how this page comes together when we're talking about impacts of a particular winter event. So what's the difference between 2 inches of snow in Atlanta and 2 inches of snow in like the mountains of Wyoming or Colorado? Well, this sort of takes into account, this index takes that into account, because 2 inches of snow in metro Atlanta is going to have far more impacts based on the climatological historical reference versus a couple inches of snow in the mountains that they might see like every other day in the wintertime in the Rockies. So we'll get into this. And again, this is also looks at an overall, it's an overall index, but it also looks at 3 days worth of information. So day 1, day 2, day 3, you can kind of thumb through. And this is a snapshot. What you're seeing here is a snapshot of the main page when you go to that link. But there's a pull down menu. It says select zoom area. So it starts off looking at the entire country, but you can do a pull down menu to look for like NWS Peachtree City or Greenville, Spartanburg, or Birmingham, whatever office like you're looking at or you're following closely for your area. You can change it to that. So here's what it breaks down. It looks at 6 components. It identifies and sort of rates 6 different components, starting with snow amount, which is just your general accumulations, okay? And then it has it basically provides impacts, starting with like no impacts, limited impacts, going to minor impacts, which is yellow, moderate, major, and then extreme, which would be that magenta purple. So starting off, it does an individual rating for snow amount, snow load, which basically in a brief description is like heavy wet snow on top of power lines and potentially like trees that still have leaves on them. That load of the snow, is that going to potentially break off and branches and trees that could cause widespread power outages, things like that. That's where the snow load, that's what that means for snow load. Ice accumulations, it takes into account in rates. Flash freeze, which is almost like black ice when we're looking at let's say the night after or the day after a winter storm. The precipitation has ended, but we're still looking at refreezing of any sort of melting that might have occurred from the event itself. So flash freeze is taken into effect here. Blowing snow, which we don't deal with very much here, but if the winds kick up you know, as an event unfolding, then that's considered, taken into consideration. And then ground blizzard would be, again, not something we might see very often around here, but that's also taken into account with this, this rating index. So you have 6 components there, and there are individual graphics for each of these 6 guidelines or components that make up the winter storm severity index. So you'll see at the very top, there's an overall impact that takes into effect all 6 of these components. And then you can tab through and see like just snow amount or just ice accumulation or just flash freeze potential, and look at that, kind of see what makes up the overall rating or the overall index. And a lot of times around here, it might just be, it might only be like snow amount and ice accumulations, or potentially flash freeze is thrown into the snow amount, but the flash freeze might be on day 2 or day 3, with the snow amount and or ice accumulation being on the day 1 period. So yeah, we look at this. This is out there for your consumption. We will definitely try to, when we do have potential events or ongoing events, we'll try to share this information with you to show how the impact from one system might be different from the impact of another event. Okay, any questions about that? If not, I'll go ahead and we're going to kick into just sort of looking at our different winter weather related products and definitions. Looking good there, Sid? All right. So let's just start off. I don't want to get into too much. You guys, nothing has really changed with respect to our watch warning advisory philosophy this year. I know probably some of you have heard about what's called the hazard simplification process, where we're talking about potentially removing advisories and going just to like watches and warnings for winter weather events. But that's more of a survey period at the moment, something that our higher ups in our agency are looking into, but they're working together with a lot of different groups to see if that's a feasible option moving forward. At this point, we still have winter storm watches, we still have winter weather advisories, we still have winter storm warnings and ice storm warnings. So starting off with a winter storm watch, typically the timeline of issuing a winter storm watch is within about 48 hours. That's not to say if our confidence is really high beyond 48 hours, let's say 60 hours or 72 hours out, that we wouldn't issue a watch, but that happening is going to be pretty rare. So basically, confidence is increasing that winter weather threats could cause significant travel and or safety impacts over the next couple of days when we issue a watch. And there's still plenty of uncertainty that exists with respect to timing and amounts and even impacts. But at this point, we feel pretty good that something is going to happen, and it could lead to what we talked about, warning criteria, and I'll go into that here in just a second. At this point, a lot of actions that are being taken. We know there's a lot of decisions being made, especially as it pertains to like, you know, GDOT and what they're going to do with the roads, the state and the interstates and things like that. So, yeah. Okay, another question. Yeah, we'll talk about the road surface temperatures. There is an internal site that, again, this would not be available to the public, but something for you all, especially those interested in seeing road surface temperatures. And we'll talk about that here in a not too distant future. So great question. All right, let's go to winter storm warning. So when basically, if as we continue to move along towards the onset of a potential event, again, at this point, if we go from a watch to a warning, or just a winter storm warning is issued without any watch, basically we're saying now we're within that 12 to 24 hour window of onset. Again, if confidence is really high beyond 24 hours, we may issue a winter storm warning beyond 24 hours, but that's not going to happen very often. So we're within 24 hours of onset. We have high confidence that winter weather threats will cause widespread significant travel and or safety impacts to the area. And I'll get into the definitions here in just a second, but we're basically looking at least 2 inches or more of snow and or a 1/4 inch of ice accumulation or more. And that's kind of our amount criteria or thresholds for warning effects, winter storm warnings. Most preparations and decision making are wrapping up at this point, because we know within that 12 to 24 hour window, everybody's wanting to know what to do and when to do it. Certainly things could change very drastically in that 12 to 24 hour window. So it's really important. We'll talk about that aspect of things more later this afternoon when we do the 3rd webinar, this scenario. Winter weather advisory. Again, timeline of issuance is within 24 hours of onset. We're basically defining, our definition is that confidence is increased, again, that winter weather threats will cause some travel and/or safety impacts, not as significant and/or widespread as what a winter storm warning might be showing or sharing. So again, amounts, snow and/or ice amounts, less than 2 inches of snow or sleet and less than a 1/4 inch of ice accumulation. So a winter weather advisory is definitely something that we have to take very seriously, but it may be more of a nuisance event versus a widespread significant winter storm event. So stay vigilant should conditions change, which could change pretty quickly within that 12 to 24-hour window, resulting in a possible upgrade from a winter weather advisory to a winter storm warning. We've seen that happen a number of times over the last few years with certain events. And then last but not least, an ice storm warning. So the difference between an ice storm warning and a winter storm warning is that the primary weather or precipitation type is going to be freezing rain, which is going to result in an ice accretion or ice accumulation, at least a 1/4 inch or greater of ice accumulation with this thing. And when we issue ice storm warnings, because there's a definite difference between getting like an inch of ice and an inch of snow, because an inch of ice accumulations is certainly going to result in potential of seeing more like widespread power outages due to downed trees and power lines and things like that. So the roads are one concern, certainly, but then you talk about power outages from that, the weight of that amount of ice accumulating, and it becomes a much bigger issue with respect to public safety and all that. So that's why ice storm warning is sort of broken out by itself when we expect the primary weather or precipitation type to be freezing rain, which will lead to the ice accumulation. Other products to keep in mind outside of precipitation is the wind chill advisory when we're talking about more extreme cold. Wind chill advisories, again, usually issued within about 24 hours of when it's, when the threat's going to be occurring. We're basically saying we have confidence that the combination of gusty winds and cold temperatures will result in public health or safety issues, primarily related to like hypothermia, frostbite if you're exposed outdoors. And the criteria that we look at are wind chill values basically between about 5 degrees above zero and 10 degrees below zero. And when you start getting into that range, even though that's not the actual ambient temperature, if you have exposed skin and those types of wind chill values, frostbite can set in pretty quickly, like within about 20 to 30 minutes, if not sooner. And then, of course, hypothermia is another thing to be concerned about. Now, for a wind chill warning, same kind of thought process. The only difference is that we're expecting colder wind chill values, actually dropping below 10 below zero in some cases. So if we're expecting 10 to 15 to 20 below zero wind chills, doesn't happen very often, but certainly up in the northern parts of Georgia and the higher elevations, when the wind kicks in with those, if we're looking at some extreme cold moving through, wind chill warnings can be issued from time to time across the area. Okay, I mentioned this, if those of you that were in the earlier session this morning talking about the winter weather outlook, we do have amounts thresholds for issuing winter storm products, but impacts are definitely taken into consideration, especially if it's like the first snow of the year. There's maybe a big profile event happening in Metro Atlanta or one of the bigger cities around the area. Amounts are one thing, but we look at the impact. So again, 34 degrees, 2 to 3 inches of snow may still result in a winter storm warning based on criteria for amounts of snow. But if we get a 1/2 inch of snow and the temperature's in the upper 20s and it's over Thanksgiving or New Year's, there's a lot of things happening around the area. And we know that based on the temperatures, the potential to see icy conditions is going to be a lot higher. That might trigger us to do a winter storm warning from time to time versus a winter weather advisory. So it's all those factors are taken into consideration in addition to the potential amounts of snow and or ice that we could see. Impacts really drive our decision making, as they do for you, as well as being core partners. Okay. Hopefully there aren't any questions about that, leading off the session, talking about winter weather guidance and some of the products that are tied to our winter weather events. But we're going to go into some situational awareness tools moving forward. Okay, great. So I wanted to start the situational awareness tools and resources off by looking at some hydrologic resources that our Laura Belanger is our senior service hydrologist, and many of you probably talked with her or worked with her in different workshops. Just wanted to remind everybody that winter season is like our recharge period. This is a time of year where we definitely can see a lot of heavy rain events. It's just a more active period of the year where we see more storm systems affecting the area. And despite what the 90-day outlook might be showing on potential seeing, drier than usual conditions, a higher probability of seeing drier than usual conditions, heavy rain and flood events are definitely still possible during a drier season where La Nina could be pointing to that. So keep that in mind. During flooding events, river rises can be monitored from our AHAPS page, which just stands for Advanced Hydrologic Prediction System. Many of you who are familiar with our webpage and have critical river gauges, river and stream gauges around your counties have probably seen that graphic to the left here. There's also from the USGS this water dashboard, which is at dashboard.waterdata.usgs.gov. So again, that has some really good information there from the various river and stream gauges that exist across parts of Georgia and even outside the state as well. Resources for during a precipitation event or a post event. Again, the USGS has some very, very unique information and websites, data sets that exist. Real-time data available, keeps the publicly facing archive of river information on their website. So again, the links to this information is also from that dashboard, the dashboard.waterdata.usgs.gov. If you happen to miss this, any of these websites at the very end, we can go back through them for sure. In addition, again, this is during events. So as precipitation and rainfall is starting to occur and mount up, the AHAPS pages will update with recent crest and historical crest data 1 to 2 months after the river flooding event. So when you click on a specific river or stream gauge, it will take you to not only the current levels and a potential forecast for that particular gauge site, but you'll also be able to see how the current and existing levels compare to recent crest at that location for that particular river and stream. So that's all located from our Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service, AHAPS we call it for short. Some really good information, not to mention, you have some location data from the mapping systems located here as well. Some of you may have heard of what's called this NOAA Atlas 14 website before. I know I brought it up in some of the EMAG conferences. Laura, we've had the the hydrologic workshops in the past where this has been brought up as well. These can be useful in determining sort of the precipitation frequency of a particular event, like an individual event, as far as rainfall, like how much rain you got in a 6-hour period or a 3-hour period or a 24-hour period based on your location can be sort of rated as to give you an idea of the average like reoccurrence of seeing something like this, kind of like a probability. So when you hear about like 100-year flood events or 100-year rain events, it's not saying that that event is likely to occur once every 100 years. It's basically saying there's a 1% chance for that type of an event occurring. That's what a 100-year flood event or 100-year rain event actually means. It's just all about, again, those probabilities, which I'm sure drive everybody crazy from time to time. So remember, again, the frequency estimates for rainfall events are not the same for flood events, okay? If you need river flood event frequencies, we can work with you through the USGS to provide you that information. The NOAA Atlas 14 data is primarily for actual rainfall events, not actual flooding events that occur with the probability. So in other words, a 50-year rainfall event is not the same as a 50-year flood event. Just keep that in mind when you're looking at this NOAA Atlas 14 data. So if you, just to sort of wrap up this section on hydrology, if you are in need of river monitoring equipment or looking to get or expand on the river and stream gauges that might exist or not exist in your area, let us know. We can connect you with the right people through USGS. And here's an example. Brian McCallum, who's is a great partner with us. We've worked with him for numerous years now, is the Assistant Director for Data in Georgia for USGS, the South Atlantic Water Science Center. His number and information is there. You could reach out to Brian directly there. He knows that we're sharing this information with all of you. But you could also connect with us here in the office, and we'll make sure that we link you with Brian to move forward. Once a survey is sort of complete, river flood warnings can then be issued for that particular location that's set up. So keep that in mind. If you still have any questions, you can, again, contact us or contact Laura. She's left her information here, phone number, extension number, and also email address as well. All right. Is there a question? Yeah, let me go back. Okay. Hopefully everybody will be able to hear me moving forward just fine. Okay, let's move ahead. We're going to continue with our situational awareness tools for you all. This is more about, this section talks about more communication, two-way interaction. Many of you, if you've been partners with us for a few years now, have heard of NWS Chat. I send out from several times a year some reminders that if you have an existing chat account, be sure to update your password when the weather is relatively quiet, because that when the weather starts to become more active, we may not have as much time to help you out because we're focusing on some other things. But here's the website, and if those of you that don't have an account but maybe looking to have an account, provide information with us, or monitor information that's coming from our office, you can go to that website there and go to request NWS Chat account, NWS Partners, and then just follow the instructions from there and we can help you out. For mobile use with NWS Chat, because we know a lot of you are on the road, there's a couple of different applications. These seem to be the best ones based on experience for iPhones and Android users. Monal for iPhones and Jabber for Androids. There used to be like a Talkanaut app that was good, but some of these older versions, as the mobile phones have become more technologically advanced, the older apps don't particularly work as well. So we're always constantly wanting to hear back from some of our partners and users and see what might be the better mobile chat apps that could be good for NWS Chat. So these are the two that tend to be the best ones at the moment, but I'm sure there's a couple of more out there. Okay, let's talk about INWS real fast, because we do have, the Weather Service does have this mobile alert feature that, again, only available to our core partners. This is not something that we share with our public. But if you're interested in getting, I'm sure a lot of you already get weather warnings and alerts from like 7 different directions. But INWS sort of cuts out the middle person or like a vendor, and it comes straight from our office or other offices that might be issuing specific weather alerts for various hazards. So this is a great feature. It's been around for a few years. This is unlike chat. If you go in to request an account, it actually goes to a higher level at our regional office for approval. So if you ever get denied, it's not coming from us. We can certainly look into the reason for denial if you want to push it, and I can certainly we can certainly talk with our regional folks to make sure that kind of give you a good explanation as to why. There's a volume issue. We can't have thousands and thousands on the server. Sometimes it might slow down the actual system itself. So keep that in mind. But this is great. I know some counties have it because they have limited tools to monitor and receive weather information to begin with. Okay, moving ahead. Our radar pages, which have been pretty much stagnant for about 20 to 25 years now on our web pages, is actually finally going to undergo a complete refresh, and the new pages are supposed to be operational in the next week, December 16th. So the old page look is kind of, I took a snapshot of what you would get, what you get right now, and here's a look at the new page. Basically, the entire mapping structure has been sort of revamped. So that's a good thing. Now, between now, if you want to check out and sort of test out what it'll look like, the radar.weather.gov webpage is not going to be updated until December 16th. So in the meantime, I attached a link to the preview site, the new site, and the capabilities there on the right. Now, looking more into these new radar pages, big deal here is that, again, the mapping structure and the usability of the entire system is a lot more modern and up to date compared to what we had before. So what it also provides is more features like zooming in and out. Easily, you can switch radars pretty easily if you want to come off of Peachtree City and look at like Warner Robins or Maxwell or High Top, which is up in Northeast Alabama. You can do that pretty easily from this page. It starts off as like a national, when you go to the website, it'll be a national page, like a national mosaic. But then there on the left side here, at the very top, there are pull down menus so that you can select a specific radar based on your location that you can type in yourself. So there's a lot of good information here. Again, the usability of it, the mapping features are so much more up to date and modern. It also includes more advanced, what we call dual polarization radar data that we're currently using from our radar site. So it's not just the basic reflectivity, basic velocity, which most people are fine with. But if you wanted to get into looking at like precipitation type, echo tops, bill density, there's a lot of different things that are available that weren't available with the current or old site that's out there that we've been using for years. Yes. Yeah. So we'll move ahead. Hopefully everybody is kind of looking forward to that. I think there was a question about the MesoNet, Georgia MesoNet site. We'll get into that here in just a second. But hopefully with these new radar pages coming next week, you'll have more of another option to look at radar data aside from the archaic, outdated mapping radar pages that are currently on our website. Here's a zoomed in version of the state, which allows you again to overlay interstates, counties. I think the cities are pretty much set, but the more you zoom in, the more that those towns and cities will actually show up, similar to like Google Maps and things like that. Yeah, quick question. Yeah, there's a question is these new radar pages comparable to like GR2 analyst, and I'd say they're more comparable than the old existing radar pages that we have, but there are probably still some subtle differences between the two. But this is definitely a lot closer to utilizing GR2 versus what we've been using for years now. So hopefully that'll help. Okay, let's move ahead. We're going to talk about statewide weather observations. We continue to see a growing number of weather stations, reliable weather stations across the state. They're sort of broken. We call it sort of a mesonet of weather stations. UGA, through their Ag Center or Ag Science Department, has a number of very reliable sites across the state. EPD has some sites. The Forest Service has a number of sites. GDOT continues to grow their station sites across the state, which has been excellent over the past few years. And then the NWS FAA sites are the ASOS, AWOSs, the automated sensors or stations that exist across the state as well. So this is a great, if you really want to get real-time weather information and see how conditions are not only looking but evolving, maybe to your west or north or whatever, these stations are great. So how do you access them? Well, here's one. There are a number of different ways. We're just going to touch on a few of these different vendors and servers that can provide this information for free. One of them, and you probably heard me talk about what's called the MesoWest page. This is run through the University of Utah. It's free. You can go to it and then click on like North Georgia, and this is what you get. Kind of an example of it'll start off the default with the NWS FAA sites, but you can change the network. You can expand the network to include those Forest Service sites. You can expand it to include like the APRS sites, co-op sites. The only thing that this does not show, because it's not run through the national data stream, is the GDOT sites and the UGA sites. Now we're trying to get the GDOT sites back on board. At one time, they were available through the MesoWest site here, but because GDOT kind of transitioned from one vendor to another, they actually dropped off. But we're working to try to get that back on board, and we'll let you know if and when that does happen. But for now, there's still a number of sites that, you know, networks that you'll be able to get real-time weather information through this MesoWest site. And on top of that, at the very top here, where it says surface weather maps, if you change that pull-down menu to current weather summary, it will give you a breakdown, a tabular breakdown, county by county, as long as you're like in the state of Georgia, of all the different weather stations that exist for each county. Some counties may have none or one, and then some counties may have upwards of like 10 or 15 different weather sites. Obviously, that's dependent on population and resources that are going into the county there. So just wanted to provide that. You can get a graphical version of the real-time conditions. You can also get this tabular component to these real-time conditions. Okay, so GDOT weather stations, where can you view this? Now, unless you're having some private vendor provide you this information, you can go to our website, this weather.gov/FFC/GDOT_RWIS. And what you will get here, this is not a prediction of what's happening. These are all the GDOT sites out there that are basically giving you real-time conditions, both in a graphical form. So it's basically looking at like the last, 24 hours or so to the current time. You'll also get a tabular format below the graphic that you see there, where a lot of these update every 10 to 20 minutes. So that's a really beneficial thing, regardless of the weather conditions, that you get to see these updates every 10 to 20 minutes or so. And most sites will give you current temperature, dew point, wind speed, and direction. It will give you the road temperature that you see here. Not every site is reporting road temperature at this time, but somebody asked that question about being able to see the road temperatures, and you can get that from this page, from the GDOT sites. Just keep in mind that not every single site is reporting road temperature at this time. So this, hopefully, just click on the red dot to get the latest conditions, so you can change which station you're looking at by going back to this map here on the left, and then just clicking on a particular site that you might be interested in. Okay, any questions, Sid? We're doing all right? Okay, excellent. So let's move ahead. Another site, again, there was a question about the UGA stations, and from the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, these are the current real-time weather observations that you'll get. They kind of look and feel. And if you clicked on one of these balloons or whatever, you'll get more information from that particular or specific weather station from the UGA sites. Again, this site here only is showing you the 80 or so stations that are out there that are supported by the UGA Ag and Environmental Sciences Department. Okay, so how can we throw all this information together for your benefit? If you really are wanting to have a free, nice situational awareness dashboard, this enhanced data display, EDD we call it, is a great site. If you go to the preview.weather.gov/EDD, this is what you'll see. It may start off as just a kind of a gray screen with a bunch of options to the left here. If you start turning on those options like weather hazards, current conditions, radar, you can customize, you can even change the background from this gray background to like terrain or satellite feature background. But you can customize this dashboard to however you like it, and you can save it so that the next time you go back in, it'll be there for you, and you don't have to worry about switching and changing the options there on the left every time you go back into your link. Okay, and the nice thing about it is if you wanted to share it with a partner, a coworker, or somebody like that, you can take the link that you've saved with the customization that you've created and share that with somebody else, and so that they have that without having to go in and really mess around with the features at all. Another really cool feature at the very top right-hand corner there, there's like a sign that has like a car on like a curvy symbol. That's a travel hazard forecast link, where if you click on that, you can open it up, and if you give it a start and an end point, it will project and give you, based on like going 55 or 60 miles per hour, basically the weather that's anticipated along your route. If it's an 8-hour route from point A to point B, it'll give you, pulling from the National Weather Service forecast database, it'll give you specific like forecasts along the route there. So that's kind of a nice feature that this, one of the nice features that this page can provide you, in addition to the real-time data, weather hazards, watches, warnings, and things that are overlaid on here as well. Okay, what about this? Advancements in point forecasts. You probably recognize, many of you, if you're familiar with our webpage, we might reference what's called this hourly weather graph. It's what you'll see there is like a 48-hour window, hour by hour, of like temperatures and wind speed and direction and probability of precipitation, rainfall amounts, snow, things like that. Well, this is still out there on our webpage if you clicked on the point and click map, but something else that's out there that's a little bit, takes this to like the next level, is what you see here. If you go to the web link at the top, and this is on the helpful hazard or helpful links page, if you go to weather.gov/forecast points all together, it basically takes you to this mapping interface, and you can zoom in. It starts off with the entire country, but then you can zoom in to a particular point or type in like a lat/lon point, and it'll give you basically below the map a weekly summary of like highs and low temperatures, so max and min temperatures, max and min wind speed, sky cover probability, probability of precipitation. In addition to that, you'll be able to see in tabular format an hourly breakdown basically over the next few days of what the high and low temperatures or all the temperatures are doing. And there's also a graphical interface, an hourly weather graph. It's just a little bit more cooler looking. It takes the same data that you're looking at with this older existing hourly weather graph, but it just sort of puts it in a more like easier to read, fun format for you to use for planning purposes especially. So that's the link. It's weather.gov/forecast points. So check it out. And again, you have to click on a specific point on the map or type in a location in order for the data to actually, the output to be shared with you. Okay, and another thing that as far as dashboards go, we have a state weather page that I know our state partners like GMA love to use. Because we have 6 National Weather Service forecast offices that cover the entire state of Georgia, it can kind of get challenging and time consuming to sort of hodgepodge everything together. But what we've created, and we've had this for a couple of years, is a state weather page where basically we blend, or not blend, we just take everything that the other 5 offices are doing, including what we're doing with respect to the forecast, and it just kind of it puts it all out there for you on this particular page. So an example of this, if you were to click on down on rainfall here, open it up and then click under like Rainfall Briefing, it will give you the statewide potential to see like how much rainfall is expected for day 1, day 2, day 3, and all the way through day 7. It's a 7-day outlook, and it even combines like day 1 through day 7, so that you can see that entire output for the next week. So that's just one example if you were to click on rainfall, but if you clicked under like severe weather, it'll give you like the Storm Prediction Center day 1, day 2, day 3 outlooks if you're familiar with that and interested in that information as well. Questions about this one? Good. So yeah, we just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that this is out there in addition to the other pages of information, resources and tools that are out there for your benefit. So, and a couple of other things, all of the information that's on our webpage, the weather.gov site, can be available to you on your mobile device. You just go to mobile.weather.gov and you can type in like a specific location or multiple locations to get sort of like a point forecast on your phone. I know a lot of people always ask us, well, don't you have like a weather app? Well, because we are a public service and a federal agency, we cannot compete with the private sector for weather technology like weather apps on phones. So we do have there are definitely private weather companies that just repackage our information and share it or send it to phones and other devices. But that's the big reason why we can't really develop our own app. But you'll probably see a lot of weather, like NOAA or National Weather Service related apps that are out there that just tie into the information that we're already putting out there, the forecast and the radar data, the satellite data, and the real-time weather conditions. So this just gives you a way to go straight to the source from your mobile device by going to mobile.weather.gov here, and you can just set up to 10 locations. You can look at hourly weather forecast, local radar data. You can even use social media, Twitter, to connect with us through your device there. So in summary, just wanted to go back and just share with you what we covered. We hope that some of this information was helpful. I know some of the probabilistic snow and ice forecasts can be a little confusing, but if and when we actually do have an event this winter, we'll provide some more insight as to what this all means. But the watch warning advisory products, really no big changes there. We definitely take into consideration the impacts in addition to the duration and amounts of snow and ice when we're putting out those winter weather related products. Situational awareness tools, we touched upon the hydrologic side of things when we're talking about heavy rainfall and flooding events as we hit this sort of recharge period of the year for parts of Georgia. Talked about NWS Chat, which is a really, really good way for two-way, like instant messaging and communication between us and you guys, our core partners that are out there in the field. INWS is a great way to just go straight to the source for mobile alerting to your phones for text messages, emails. We talked about the new radar pages that are going to be coming next week on our web pages, which should be a lot more useful and beneficial compared to what we've been using for a number of years now. The real-time weather observation sites from GDOT to the UGA ag sites to the MesoWest page where you can monitor real-time weather observations will hopefully be helpful for you guys leading up to some bigger events that we get. Hopefully that dashboard, that enhanced data display could be beneficial for some of you if you're just looking for like a one-stop shop to have real-time weather information coming straight from the information and the sources that we have here at our office. The point and click advancements should be really nice because it just, again, takes that hourly weather graph information to the next level with that forecast page that I was showing you earlier. So hopefully this all has been really good for all of you. We appreciate everything that you do for us and providing us storm information during the event and even after the events. But we'll that sort of ends this session on weather tools and resources, and we'll open it up for questions at this point if you have any. And again, these slides and the recorded version of this session and webinar will be shared with all of you in the very near future. Go ahead.